Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. MashaAllah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa azimina wa habibi qulubina wa shafi'a nufusina bil Qasim Muhammad. وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على وسير رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم، أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. أما بعد، فيقول الله في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. The first of our loudest salawat in honor of the Ahl al-Bayt, salawatullah wa salamu alaykum. The second in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Muhammad al-Mahdi Ajjalallahu Farajahu Sharif. Brothers, sisters, respected elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We find that the issue of the tongue is a very neglected issue, that many scholars do not talk about the tongue and the rights of the tongue. Neither do they talk about Risalat al-Huquq or indeed Sahifa al-Sajadiyya, which are some of the many works of Imam Zain al-Abidin salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Hence, to understand the book, you have to look at the writer. Imam was an individual who was born in Medina in the 38th year after Hijrah. This individual's father's name was Hussein ibn Ali, and he was the son of Sharbanu, a princess of Persia. His titles are Zain al-Abidin and As-Sajjad, but his kunya, his name is Abul Hassan. He died in the year after Hijrah 94-95 in Medina, and is buried next to his uncle Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam. Many people come forward in today's society and they refer to the Imam as Bimar Imam. And when you ask people about Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, many people come forward and say, he's Bimar. That's what we known him for since our young days, Bimar Imam. You ask them, do you know anything else? When was he born? Where did he live? Who's his children? When did he die? Who is he buried next to? Who's his wife? Who's his mother? When you ask these people these questions, they will have a question mark on their face and say, he had a life? But the reality is that within Muharram, we are told about Muhammad Sajjad within the 10 days. And the only thing that you hear is Bimar Imam. He was chained. He had to walk all the way to Syria. He was Bimar. This word Bimar. Imam Zain al-Abidin was known as Zain al-Abidin. He was known as As-Sajjad, the one who prostrates. He was known for his salah. And therefore, some of the many books that he wrote, as I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, is one of these are Sayfa Sajadiyya, the most eloquent book that you'll come across for any dua within the Shia Islam. But the book in question today is Risalat al-Huquq. Risalat al-Huquq is translated into the English language as the divine perspective on rights. Many people do not even know that this book exists. And this is a sad plight within our societies, that people do not know what this book is. This book is a compendium of rights of the human being. But not only the human being, it goes further than that. The rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have you ever asked yourself the question, what's the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What's the rights of the person that I walk with? What's the rights on the person that I sit in a taxi with? What are the rights of my mother? What are the rights of my father? What are the rights of my children? What are the rights of my hand? What are the rights of my eyes? What are the rights of my feet? What are the rights of my private parts? What are the rights? What are the rights is the question that you need to ask yourself. Too many people in today's society do not know the rights, therefore they neglect the rights. Many people come forward in today, and what do they say? Ignorance is bliss. What do you mean ignorance is bliss? Bliss is knowledge that you gain from your imams. That's bliss. Therefore we need to look into this. Because many people, including those who are above in the societies, the top fellas in the societies, for example, I'm not going to mention names, but certain prime ministers call certain people bigoted women. For example, recently in the news you would have heard 2 presidents from the Western world talking about an Eastern president. One said, I had enough of him, he's a liar. The other said, you have to deal with him only sometimes, I have to deal with him all the time. Therefore we realize that people neglect these rights, and therefore they go deeper into the darkness of ignorance. They go deeper into the darkness of the materialism. Like I said in many lectures before, people are devoid of their spirituality completely. And these examples that you give that are on top of the society, prime ministers and presidents, they give you the perfect example. That you're a prime minister, you're a leader. For example, the imam of the mosque, or the Maulana of the mosque is the example for you people. Now if the Maulana or I personally, I start lying, or I start swearing, what does that give a good example for the rest of the community? But I backbite people, what example is that for the rest of the community? Therefore, people that are in power today do not understand their rights. And they fall deeper into this darkness of ignorance. Now the right in question today is the right of the tongue. And I tell you, there are good 30, 40 rights in that book, Rasalat al-Huquq. I would recommend each of you to go buy this book. Lisa Morgan is the editor of that book. The publisher, I'm not 100% sure, ask me afterwards, but I think it's Ansarian publication from Iran. Each one of you needs to go buy this book. And therefore we need to tackle this issue of the rights of the tongue, because it's a very important issue within our societies, that people abuse their tongue. Like the brother was saying, they abuse it. They use it in a negative manner. That the tongue is such a thing that either you are good with it, or you are not good with it. Either you use it at a time of need, or you just use it for the hell of using it. And therefore, the first of the discussions will be the gift of the tongue. Looking at the Quran, what does the Quran say about the tongue? Prophet Musa alayhi salam, eloquence in terms of that. Looking at the speech of Imam Zain al-Abidin, and Sayyidah Zainab salawatullah wa salamu alayhuma. Looking at Amir al-Mu'mineen's quote on the tongue being a beast. Power and responsibility. On the second level, we're going to be looking at the rights of the tongue. What does Imam actually say about the right of the tongue? Let's look at the corruption of the tongue. For example, we're going to look at excessive talking, bad language, arguing and debating, backbiting, lying and advising. And on the final level, we're going to be looking at dua, or as you say in the Urdu language, dua. We're going to be looking at dua from the Quran. What is dua? How do we do dua? What are the etiquettes of dua? And by going through each one of these, we will understand what are the rights of the tongue, how do we use the tongue. And therefore, in the first level, in the beginning of the lecture, I mentioned, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaq al-Insan, Allamahu al-Bayan, Allamahu al-Bayan, Bayan. Allah created the human being, then He taught him how to speak. Now this word, speak, in the English language, is quite a pathetic word, to be completely honest with you. That within Arabic you have many words to describe something. And the Arabic language is very precise. When you say bayan, what does it mean? Not the Urdu bayan. Bayan in Arabic, it means to uncover something. To uncover something. For example, you have a car. You remove the cover, and you see what beauty lies under it. This is what you call bayan. Bayan, when it is uncovered, what does it mean? It means that the zuban or the bayan was given to the human beings so that they could understand one another. When you understand one another, what does it mean? It means that when a person talks, it's very easy to talk to each other. For example, you ask the animals how difficult it is for them. That they have to use body language. They have to use certain levels of screaming or screeching. It is very difficult for the animal. But you find the human being, how beautiful is his language. That he says something, do this, and you do it. A very simple language that has been given to the human being. And therefore in the Quran, in chapter 49, verse 13, it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you in male and female. Male and female, He divided you into tribes and families so that you can understand one another. Now people will come forward and say to you, but hold on, if I go to Montreal and I'm an English speaker and I go into the restaurant and they're all speaking French, what do? How do I order my breakfast? Because this happened to me. And then when this happened, you realize that each culture is different. Each language is different, but this is the beauty. For example, I came here for, 14 days so far, 13 days. I can say some French words. Comment ça va, for example. Je sais pas, for example. That within my short span of staying here, I've learned a few words within a language. And this dictates to you that each is an example from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because each culture is unique. The Pakistani will have his own culture. The Lebanese will have his own culture. Each society has their own languages. This is not something that should divide us. Rather, it should unite us. In saying to us that, look at this person, he speaks a different language. Look at the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's created people in different languages and different colors and different cultures so that we can understand one another. And therefore in the Quran you find Prophet Musa alayhi salam saying, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Qala, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Many of you hear this from the member all the time. The Maulana at the beginning of his lectures usually says these things. Not this Manala, I'm just talking about generally. That when a Maulana usually recites, he mentions these verses. Why? Because it means expand my breast, expand my knowledge, make my task easy for me, and make my tongue eloquent. Now this eloquence is one of the rights of the tongue, because if I'm standing here right now and I'm joining my words together, one moment I'm speaking one language, another moment I'm speaking another language, that you can't even understand the English that is coming out of my mouth, then how can I say something to you? How can I uncover the secrets of something? How can I make you understand what I'm saying? That is why they say Fir'aun was a very eloquent human being in terms of his speech. Musa alayhi salam said, Ya Allah, give me eloquence so I can combat him to spread your message. For example, in the court of Yazid, Sayyidah Zainab as well as Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, they both gave khutbahs to Yazid. Why? Because na'udhu billah min zalik, he was cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen from the member. And they were giving him eloquent replies that he couldn't reply back to. This is another beauty of the tongue. That a human being can talk so eloquently that no one can challenge him. On the other hand, you have some people, they come forward and you think, when they talk, and you're thinking, what is this guy saying? And therefore it is utmost important to understand the tongue. And that's why Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, the tongue is a beast that will cause an injury when unleashed. MashaAllah, look at the poetry. Beast, unleashed. Even in the English language, Amir al-Mu'mineen says poetry. What can you do? No, the reality is, and all jokes aside, that's true. What he said is absolutely true. Why? Because the tongue can be used for two things. It can make a society. It can build a family. It can build love between the community. On the other hand, it can break a family. It can destroy a community. It can cause brothers to be apart for many years. This tongue is such a unique thing that its weight is just a few grams per se. But the power of the tongue, when unleashed, can destroy our whole society. That the tongue is probably one of the smallest things within your body, in the exterior, one of the smallest things, but it is so powerful that it will destroy any human being when it is used inappropriately or appropriately. This is the reality of the tongue, brothers and sisters. And that's why this tongue is a power and a responsibility. True? That if a tongue can destroy a whole community, it is a loan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with great power comes great responsibility. Those of you who know that line, you know where it's coming from. And this is a reality that with power comes great responsibility. Many people come into power and they begin to destroy the communities like Yazid did. Many people come into power like Amir al-Mu'mineen and say, no, if he is not your brother in religion, he is your equal in humanity. Two different pieces of the puzzle. Now one person will destroy, one person will make to build. And this is a power, brothers and sisters, given to each one of you. So use your power. In julus, talk against oppression. Even with your hands, write and speak. Tell the people who Ali Muhammad are. Use this tongue that you have been given. What is the message that you learn from the member every single day? He spoke against evil. He spoke against oppression. So the question is, why do you do oppression on yourself? Why do you do oppression on yourself? It's all well and good saying, he's doing wrong, he's doing wrong. Go look in the mirror and see, are you doing wrong? Because if you're doing wrong, then who are you to tell other people? True? That if I'm doing something with my tongue that is wrong, and then I go tell other people, listen, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? You have no right to tell other people the things that you do yourself. And this is a reality, brothers and sisters. And therefore, Amir al-Mu'mineen says that, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this Islam for you to attain supreme pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have exalted worship. He goes further than this. He goes, He has favored it with noble precepts, exalted principles, undoubtable arguments, unchallengeable supremacy, undeniable wisdom. Noble precepts, exalted principles. Noble precepts can come from the tongue. Exalted principles, if you're a man of principle, will you swear? If you're a man of principle, will you do ghibah? If you're a man of principle, then you wouldn't. Are we men of principle? That's the question that we have to ask one another. And therefore, Imam Zain al-Abidin, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, says in Risalat al-Huquq that accustom your tongue to noble deeds and make it go towards good. Use it in the time of need and not in other times. Use it in the time of benefit to your religion. Refrain from meddling in other people's business that does not even concern you, and make it a witness for your intellect. This is Risalat al-Huquq, brothers and sisters. This is Risalat al-Huquq. And therefore, let's examine each one, because we have many flaws within ourselves. So let's examine each one and try to understand what the Imam is saying. Excessive talking. Number one, you meet someone and they go on and they go on and they go on. My God, some people can talk. That those of you who are married, excuse me sisters, don't watch this part. That those of you who are married will know that once your wife gets on the phone, 5 hours. He'll go and he'll go and he'll go. And you're thinking to yourself, when the bill comes, you're thinking to yourself, Subhanallah, she can talk. When the bill's coming, $500, everyone's eyes are opening. And this is the reality, that people talk, not just females, but males as well, that they talk and they talk and they talk. You ask them, what did you talk about? I talked for 3 hours, but I just can't remember anything. You're talking, and you can't remember anything. What do you mean you can't remember anything? That means you're talking because you have to. And do you know what Aristotle says about those sort of people? The wise man wants to say something. The idiot has to say something. Problem is, we got too many people that have to say something. Not enough people that want to say something. Understand the difference? That he has an idea in his head, he wants to say it. This guy, he doesn't even have an idea, he just has to. He has to say some blunder. He has to say something. Why? Because I want to get involved in the conversation. What do you mean you want to get involved? Sometimes you just sit down and listen to what the individual is saying, you might learn something. And therefore, it is the duty of each one of us, brothers and sisters, to respect our tongue. But when we talk excessively, what does it lead to? It leads to gossip, doesn't it? And I'll tell you one thing about gossip, brothers and sisters. I'll tell you one thing, it is a disease within our communities. Why? Because when you go into gossip, the right of that person you're talking about, each one of you need to know this. If someone's talking about your Shia brother, or your other brother from other religions, you should be looking to defend that individual. That is the right of that person. Why are you talking about him? Come say it to his face. Many people, they won't come to your face. They'll talk behind your back, and they'll talk behind your back. You say to them, talk to his face. From Montreal, he'll be taking a plane to Toronto. This is what people do. They'll talk, and then they do gossiping. Therefore, we need to look at bad language. Why? Because within the Western society, I tell you, there's some filthy tongues out there. One after the other, one after the other. Within one sentence, let's say it's 10 words, 8 of those will be swear words. Why? Imam Rida alayhi salam says, do you know what he says? He says that person who uses filthy language will not even smell paradise. Smell paradise. Do you think, you need to think about what you do. We use such bad language. I don't know about Montreal, but especially in London, I tell you, there's some filthy tongues. You're walking in the Harlequin, the only thing you're hearing is swearing. F word this, and P word that, and C word this. And you're thinking, these people are a modern society? Modern? How did these people become modern? You can't even control your tongues and you think you're modern. Understand the fact that we have gone so forward in science, but so backward in terms of the self, the nafs. We're going forward this way, and we're coming back the other way. What's the point? Like I mentioned yesterday, what's the point of having a tongue and then using it to do gossiping and excessive talking? Imam says, use your tongue, accustom it to good, and use it for the benefit of your religion. Too many people use it for their own benefit. Too many people use it just to swear and to curse. He done this and he done that. Why are you cursing? Why are you cursing? Yes, okay, it is a part of tawalla and tabarra, no doubt. Ask yourself the question, when I curse, does it come back on me? I said this yesterday, does it come back on me? He is a liar, I cursed him. He charges too much money, for example, I cursed him. Look at yourselves. That you curse that individual for certain characteristics, but what about yourselves? Do you have those characteristics within yourself? Then who are you to curse the other people? Curse yourself for having those characteristics within you. Therefore, let's look at arguing and debating. The problem in today's society is that too many people argue and too many people debate. Listen, when you go into a debate, the debate is there to see from the lens of the other person. If you go into a debate and say, I'm Shia, my belief is this, then what's the point of going to a debate? The debate was not made to change a Sunni to a Shia or a Shia to a Sunni. It was to open the eyes of the other individual, to make him understand your point of view. Look from his lens. Too many people, they go into a debate, Amir al-Mu'mineen is Hujjatullah. Other caliphs, they're better than other caliphs. Go into the debate, try to understand where they're coming from. You need to understand where they're coming from. If you don't understand where they're coming from, then how are you supposed to debate them? It's all good mentioning Ghadir, 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 Ghadir. Do we know anything about Ghadir? Let's move on from Ghadir. Pick up Nahju Balagha, say to them, bring one verse like Nahju Balagha. Why are you debating Ghadir? Why? There is no need to debate Ghadir anymore. Ghadir has been debated millions of times. Pick up Risalat al-Hukuk and say, bring me one book from your scholars that give me Risalat al-Hukuk. Bring me one book that gives you dua like Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Bring me one book like Imam Sadiq alayhi salam explains the wordings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bring me one book like Nahju Balagha that explains monotheism, history, psychology, philosophy. Why debate? Just say to them, bring me one book. End of debate. I tell you, I did that once. The guy still hasn't come back to me. Because why? They haven't got anything. So yes, debate, but don't debate with a closed mind. Debate with the open mind so that you understand where he's coming from. Because when you understand where he's coming from, you'll be able to give him a reply that is such that he'll be quiet. He won't say anything. Problem is, we are coming from our angle. Yes? There's 2 angles to every story, 3 angles to every story, 4 angles to every story. Go from their angle and then reply back to them. If you come to a brother in another school and you say, I am a Shia and I'm going to debate you from a Shia perspective, do you think you're going to win the debate? Never. You know why? Because he'll say, listen, you have your books, I have my books. End of discussion. You need to relate to the human being. Why is he coming from that angle and how do I counter that argument? Therefore, arguing, why do you argue? The rights of the tongue is this, that you accustom it to good. Why are you arguing? Sometimes people just need to say, listen, if he thinks he's right, let him think he's right. When he calms down, then discuss with him later. Too many people do not discuss, rather they argue, they attack and they are aggressive. And I'll tell you one thing, once you're aggressive, it is exactly like a war. When you're aggressive to another human being, he's going to get on the defensive. And when someone gets on the defensive, no chance. No chance in hell will you be able to counter his arguments. When someone is protecting himself, do you think he's really going to listen to you? Understand, listen to the individual, understand what he's saying, then bring arguments from there. Backbiting. I remember one brother telling me only last night, do you know what he said? Because some people, what they do, they come to the mosque. They say, Yaar, Maulana's not here yet. Abhi 30 minutes hain, kuch karte hain. Whose ghibat shall we do? Serious people will do this. Whose ghibat shall we do? They do ghiba and time flies. And then they say, Alhamdulillah. What reality is this? What logic is this? That you do ghiba and you do ghiba. Do you know what it says about ghiba in the Quran? It says in chapter 49, verse 12. Do you know what it says? It says, even suspicion on another brother is sin. Do you like to eat the dead body of your brother? Not many people understand what this means. Suspicion is a sin. What does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? He says that suspicion is a sin. And when it is a sin, brothers and sisters, it is such that it will never stop. Rather, what you should do is give 70 doubts to your brother before accusing him. How many of us do that? How many of us give 70 doubts before we accuse someone? We see someone in the shopping mall with a woman, he must be doing something with her. Ya Habibi, he's probably helping her shop. He's probably doing something to help her. Why do we always accuse? Sit down, calm down for a second. Maybe he's helping the sister. Why does everyone's intention always have to be bad? You know why? Because everyone else's intention is bad. Therefore, when they think what they would do, they expound that on another human being. The only reason people continue to accuse other people is because they know if that was them, they would do the same thing. Look at yourselves in the mirrors before you look at anyone else. And I say this to myself before I say it to any of you guys. Right? That the reality is that when you see someone, we don't think good. Do we think good? As soon as we see someone, the film, chakkar kuch hai yaar. There's something zurur, there's something going on. There's something definitely going on. Seriously? Is this what the Ahlul Bayt teach us from the member? Is this what the Maulanas teach us all year round? Why do you always look at the cup half empty? Look at the positive, it's half full. This cup is half full, it's not half empty, because I'm thinking with a positive mind frame. When you think with a positive mind frame, you realize, one, I am a good human being because I thought good of him. Two, they say when an evil thought comes into your heart, yes, there's no sin for it. You do not get sin for thinking of an evil thing, but do you think it doesn't affect your soul? Of course it affects your soul. Therefore, many people come forward and try to advise you. True? Brother, stop drinking. Brother, stop doing this. Brother, stop doing this. Sister, wear hijab. Sister, stop speaking to boys. Brother, stop talking to girls. They advise you. Instead of taking their criticism upon board and trying to understand their opinion, but you did it. You did it. You did it. You don't wear hijab. You don't do this. Yes, it's true. It's true that you're not supposed to tell other people when you do the same thing. But understand that there's some elders in this society that were not acquainted with religion as you were. I'll give you an example of my forefathers. They went into such level of taqiyya that they forgot their religion of Islam. They forgot Shiaism totally. Only when they came back to the UK, they understood who they were and what they were. True? Some people, your elders, your uncles and your aunties do not understand religion. Why? Because they were never brought up with it. You guys who are young, you understand. You get madrasa and everything. When they were in Pakistan, they were being killed left, right and center. There was no such thing as a Shia school. Everything was the other brother school. Therefore you need to be patient with the elders. And even Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamu alayhi says, except the words of wisdom even uttered by the lost ones. Except the words of wisdom, even if they're uttered by the lost ones. That if a Hindu comes and gives you some advice, take it. Wasn't it Mahatma Gandhi that said about Hussein ibn Ali, that if I had 72 soldiers like Hussein ibn Ali, I would have revolutionized the whole of India? These people who give you advice, they may not be Muslim. But when a Christian comes to you and says, why do you drink when you are Muslim? Think about it. He knows your religion more than you know yourself. Ask yourself to think. This is why we come here, to think. This is not a movie that you're watching. I'm not a movie where you don't think. I'm trying to make you understand what these things are. How important they are to each one of our lives. These are the foundations of our life. This Imam Bargah is the social hub of your whole world. This is your second home. Do not be the one who does ghibah and excessive talking and lying and destroy your whole community. Don't divide the community. There needs to be a sense of unity. Quran says, 49:13, you are made male and female to understand one another, not to divide one another. Look, each language is unique. For example, those who have Arab centers, they need to accommodate for today English and Arabic side by side. English, Urdu side by side. You need to work towards a common goal. Yes, Urdu is good, but English is also good. Yes, Arabic is good, English is also good. Do whichever language you want. Chinese, Mandarin, whatever language. But understand sometimes that you are in the West and your children do not understand Urdu. Urdu is good. Brother Shabazz knows. I come here in the Urdu Majlis. I'm here in the Ma'tam. I understand what the Urdu Khwans are saying, but some children do not. Don't lose your children, because they are your future. And the reality is, if they don't know Urdu, whose fault is that? You blame them. You don't know Urdu, so go. They don't know Urdu because of you. You didn't teach them. Don't look at other people and look at other people to blame. Sometimes sit down, look in the mirror and blame yourselves. If my children don't know Arabic, my fault. My children don't know Urdu, my fault. And if they don't know, teach. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that you need to teach. What does he say? He says that person who is not seeking knowledge is the worst of humanity. How dare you, when you're a follower of the Ahlul Bayt, stop seeking knowledge? Always you should be seeking knowledge. And therefore the final aspect of this talk is dua. Eloquency within dua is beautiful. That they say the etiquettes of dua is to say as-salawat before and to say as-salawat after the dua. Dua is so beautiful, brothers and sisters. This is a straight connection between you and your Lord. Use this. Why do we continue to tell people our secrets? Yes, the Imam said the safest custody of your secrets is the man who is wise. But the problem is that people in today's society, they don't understand their nafs. They're working towards a materialism. There's no spirituality within them. If you want to discuss your problems, your secrets, any concerns, do it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. In the Quran it says, chapter 2, verse 186, call upon me and I will answer you. The question is, how long are you willing to wait? How long are you willing to knock on that door until it's going to be opened? Problem is that we are so impatient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you make him a dua in 2006 and sometimes in 2011 you see that dua come about. Be patient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching everything that you do and He understands your problems. But you need to understand that don't tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that your problem is big. Tell your problem that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is big. Understand the point? Your problem is big, but who's bigger? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one, maybe sometimes, who gives you that problem, not to stop you. But you know why? Because He wants to drown you in the water of purity, and when you come back out of the water, you become purified. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you, brothers and sisters. He'll put you through tests. Prophets went through tests. Each test, either you make or you break your religion. You choose. I've told you before, when you have to choose between prayer and going out with your friends, you make that decision yourselves. No one else forces you. If you pray, you make Allah happy. If you go with the people will never be happy. Do you remember the donkey story? Let me remind you of the donkey story. Seems like everyone's forgot. They give me blue faces again. The donkey story. There's people going through a village. People going through a village on a donkey. They're not sitting on the donkey. People say, look at these stupid people. They're not sitting on the donkey. So the father sits on the donkey. Then the people say, look at this guy. He's oppressing his son. So the son sits on the donkey. You know what the people say? Look at this child. He's disrespecting his father. So they both get on the donkey. You know what they say? Say, look at that zulm on the donkey. You think you say, what's going on? People never happy. You can do what you want. You can feed them and feed them and feed them, buy them the best clothes. Reality is the time when it comes, lakum dinukum. Your religion, that way. Therefore, we need to tackle these issues, brothers and sisters, that we need to understand that the rights are so important. That when you say dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that should be a communication between you and your Lord. And the tongue needs to be such a value. You know why? Because the tongue is so powerful. Why? In Karbala, look how people use their tongues. Hazrat Qasim alayhi salam, look how he used his tongue. What did he say? Do you know what he said? He said, death to me is sweeter than honey. This is how you use the tongue. There's people who said, Ya Aba Abdullah, if you chop me, if they chop me into 1,000 pieces and they tell me to come back and resurrect me, they can chop me into another 1,000 pieces for you. This is how you use the tongue. This is how you show loyalty to the tongue. And I tell you, loyalty, when you mention loyalty, there's only one man that you can mention loyalty about. That is Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam. And I tell you, his loyalty was something else. They say when he was a young child, Amir al-Mu'mineen used to say to him, bring the water for Al-Hussein. Bring the water for Al-Hussein. And they say when he used to bring the water to Al-Hussein, one day he tripped. And they say Amir al-Mu'mineen began to cry. And brothers and sisters, when Amir al-Mu'mineen cries, you know something's happened. Amir al-Mu'mineen, do you know what he says? He says, Ya Abbas, there will come a day when you will also trip and you will not be able to bring the water for Saqina. They say on the deathbed of Amir al-Mu'mineen, all the children were coming and said, Amir al-Mu'mineen was saying, you have to look after Hassan, you have to look after Hassan. And Amir al-Mu'mineen said, they say that he did not look at Abbas. Abbas went into the corner and he began to cry, brothers and sisters. When he began to cry, his mother came towards him and said, Ya Abbas, why do you cry? Do you know what he says? He says, my father has not called me, but he has called everyone else. This is the loyalty of Abbas. They say, when he came towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said, oh my son, please do not cry. I cannot see you crying. I have seen enough tribulations from Fatima al-Zahra and her rib breaking. He says, Ya Abbas, a day will come when your hands will be severed. And a day will come where you have to serve Abu Abdullah. Please do not let me down. Please do not ruin my name. Serve Abu Abdullah. And they say on the plains of Karbala, brothers and sisters, when Abbas alayhi salam, he approached Hussein ibn Ali. He approached Hussein ibn Ali and said, Ya Ali, he approached Hussein and he said, Ya Hussein, Ya Abu Abdullah, please let me go towards the army. They say Shimr at this time, Shimr, he came out and he said, oh, the sons of al-Banin, come out. They say Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam sat in his room, sat in his tent. When he's sitting in his tent, he said, only Abu Abdullah can say such a line. You know, he says, Abbas, we know what Shimr is and what he will do, but do not ruin your akhlaq by not replying to him. Even to the enemies, look at Amir al-Mu'min, look at Hassan ibn Ali. Hassan ibn Ali is so perfect. He says they go out, Abbas, and you know what he says to them? Shimr says, listen Abbas, leave Hussein ibn Ali and join my army, I'll give you immunity. When he says this, he says, so, you give me immunity and you will chop off the head of Ibn Zahra. You give me immunity and my brother's immunity? May Allah's curse be upon you, Shimr. And they say Abbas alayhi salam came. And Hussein ibn Ali said, no, please, be patient. He came, be patient. He came, be patient. Eventually came a time, brothers and sisters, where he could hear the cries of Raqayya and Sakina, saying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, I am thirsty, I am thirsty. They say at this time, Hussein ibn Ali could not take it anymore. He says, Ya Abbas, go towards the enemy and get them water. They say he took a spear. That's all he took was a spear and the alam. He took the spear and the alam and he went towards them. They say he was fighting one after the other. He was killing them one after the other. Eventually, when he reached Ner Farat, and I tell you, brothers and sisters, this rips up the heart. He goes near Ner Farat, and when he goes near Farat, he picks up the water. He looks upon the water, and can you imagine the burning sun glaring upon the water? And the water rippling within his hands. He says, oh soul, after Hussein there is nothing. It will not amount to anything. Hussein is on the verge of death. While you drink this water, by Allah, this is not a deed that is within your creed. They say he threw the water on the ground. When he threw the water on the ground, brothers and sisters, they say he began to fill up the water containers. He filled up the water containers. When he filled up the water containers, they say he went back. He would look towards and he looked for the shortest route. When he was looking for the shortest route, he went towards Abu Abdullah once again. And they say behind one of the trees was an individual. May Allah's curse be upon this individual. They say he was behind the tree and he chopped off the right hand of Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam. When he chopped the hand of Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam, do you know what Abbas alayhi salam says? He said, by Allah, if you cut off my right hand, I shall still not cause to leave Abu Abdullah. He is the Imam on true conviction. He is the son of the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I tell you, so sad, brothers and sisters, because when his right arm gets cut, then he's going and his left arm gets cut. And when his left arm gets cut, brothers and sisters, they say the alam begins to move left and right. And the Sakina looks upon him, looks upon the alam and says, I think that my uncle has died. Can you imagine that 3-year-old girl saying, I think my uncle has died. They go, so why do you think this? Because the alam of Abbas has fallen. The alam of Abbas has fallen. And do you know, brothers and sisters, something? They say the arrow came from the enemy's army. The arrow came and struck him on the chest. And Abbas alayhi salam began to go from one side and to the other. And when he went one side to the other, they say an arrow came and struck Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam in the eye. And you know, brothers and sisters, when you fall off something, you usually fall upon your hands to protect yourself. They say Abbas alayhi salam, he fell upon his head. And before he fell upon his head, they say a man came. And when the man came, he struck him on his head and then he fell upon the ground. And he said, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. Ya Abu Abdullah, he came quickly. He came running towards Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam. This man who had to see his companions die and his family die one after the other. They say when he saw Abbas alayhi salam, he put his head in his lap. And when he put his head in his lap, Abbas alayhi salam moved it away. Can you imagine looking at your brother? Looking at your brother with an arrow in his eye, with arrows in his chest, and his blood is gushing everywhere. Can you imagine? And they say when he moved his head, he moved it back. Abbas alayhi salam, do you know what he said? Do not put my head upon your lap. In a few hours there will be no one there to have your head in their lap. And they say, Abbas alayhi salam said some phenomenal lines. He says that how can I go back to the Hayma where Sakina is there? How can I show my face to Sakina when I could not even bring her water? And they say Hussein ibn Ali left his body there. When he left his body there, brothers, can you imagine leaving your brother's body in the midst of the enemies? He left his body there, he went back. And Zainab alayhi salam, do you know what she said? She said, today surely our back is broken. That our qamar of Bani Hashim is broken. And tomorrow who will help us when we go towards the bazaar of Sham and the sharabi are there and the alcoholics are there looking upon us, that they will remove our chadar with despair. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Brothers and sisters, raise your hands. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to use this tongue properly, to accustom it to good, to remove ghibah from our societies, to make our communities bigger, to give our community success, to allow us to be one of the followers and true followers of Imam Zamana, and allow us to be, when he returns, to be a part of his army. Therefore we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka lihujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala aba'ih fi hadhihi as-sa'ati wa fi kulli as-sa'a waliyan wa hafidhan wa qa'idan wa nasira wa dalilan wa 'ayna hatta tuskinahu ardaka taw'a وتمتعه فيها طويلا Just 1 second before you all make a move. The brother wants to make a speech, but I've just got one thing to say, that today is the day my cousin gets buried. And I would obviously ask the community, if it's not too much trouble for you, to pray Salat al-Wahsha. In the first rak'ah, Surah Al-Hamd, and then Ayatul Kursi. In the second rak'ah, Surah Al-Hamd, then 10 times, Surah Al-Qadr, Inna anzalnahu laylatul qadr. Please, can you, if you have time, I'm not going to force you, because you are the brothers. I respect you, but if you have time, please, I would ask you to pray for her. Can we have a... Oh yeah, her name is Jamman Nisa, Sayda Jamman Nisa. Okay, thank you. If you have any problems, just ask me afterwards. Brother. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you, Sayed Muhammad. So before we go further with the program, just a short announcement. Alhamdulillah, I see that the room is filled, and maybe that's just because it's Muharram and we're getting closer and closer to the 10th of Muharram. But I honestly believe that it has a lot to do with the fact that we have a speaker who's able to speak to the youth, who's able to send a message in a universal language that we all understand. And inshallah, in the near future, there are going to be events such as this one, and donations are encouraged. Please go see Brother Yusuf Mauji, Brother Hussein Fazil, or Brother Ali Visram to make your donations. And whether it's $5 or $5,000, as long as you give with an open heart, anything you can give, honestly, will be very much appreciated. And before you make a decision as to how much to donate, just think about when was the last time you saw this many youths in front, just in front standing, eyes locked to the speaker without any type of distractions. Not any of them move, not any of them leave to go get a sip of water or go to the bathroom or find any excuses to leave, because they are willingly and voluntarily sitting and listening because they're gaining knowledge. So please think of that before you make your donation. Thank you. Sawat.